Okay, so picture this. You're reaching for your morning toast, but instead of that satisfying pop, your toaster erupts and sparks.
Definitely not how you want to start the day.
Not the wake-up call anyone needs,
Ugh.
right? And that's where our deep dive today comes in.
Speaking of wake-up calls.
You sent over a ton of stuff on electrical equipment inspectors.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of it from a site called RoleCatcher Guides. Tips the works.
Looks like they're angling for you to sign up for something.
For sure. They are really pushing the whole premium service thing. Even in the middle of explaining faulty wiring, like, come on.
Gotta admire the hustle, I guess.
It's a lot. But, okay, back to the good stuff. What does RoleCatcher tell us about what these inspectors actually do?
Well, one thing that jumps out is the crazy attention to detail they need.
Yeah, they use that phrase, keen eye for detail, about 1 million times.
And for good reason. This isn't just glancing at a wire and saying, looks good. We're talking meticulously combing through every component for the tiniest flaws.
Like electrical detectives.
Exactly. A microscopic crack in the insulation, a loose connection. You're looking for anything that could cause a problem.
So instead of dusting for fingerprints, they're,
Yeah.
I don't know, measuring voltage with those fancy multimeters.
Pretty much. They use all sorts of high-tech tools, multimeters, oscilloscopes, thermal cameras, you name it.
Wow, so we're talking serious tech alongside that sharp eye for detail.
Absolutely. One missed reading on an oscilloscope and poof, there goes your breakfast.
Probably a lot more than breakfast. Yikes. Okay, so attention to detail, high-tech tools, but they also need to know the rule book inside and out right.
You're talking about industry standards and codes, and yeah, it's serious business. We're talking about strict guidelines. Looks off. They're making sure every wire, every connection is up to code.
So basically, you need to be an electrical engineer and a lawyer to do this job.
Pretty much. But that's why this field is all about continuous learning. Technology changes, codes get updated. A good inspector needs to stay ahead of the curve.
Always plugged into the latest developments. Okay, but where are these inspectors actually working? Because it sounds kind of intense.
Intense is one word for it.
RoleCatcher paints a pretty vivid picture of factories. Lots of noise hazards, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, manufacturing is a big one. We're talking about working around high-voltage equipment, often in tight spaces. It's demanding both mentally and physically.
Definitely not your typical desk job.
Not unless your desk is next to a giant transformer.
True that.
Yeah.
But it's not all factories.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher mentioned other places like construction sites, even government agencies.
Yeah, there's definitely some variety. You might be inspecting the wiring in a new building or making sure a government facility is up to code.
Yeah.
But the core responsibilities, those stay the same.
Gotcha. So no matter where you are, if there's electricity, an inspector's probably making sure it's safe.
Exactly. Speaking of safety, RoleCatcher really plays up the whole career progression angle. They've got it all mapped out like it's a circuit diagram itself.
From entry level all the way up to senior inspector.
They even suggest building a portfolio of your best inspections. Like, look how well I inspected that circuit board.
I kind of love that. A highlight reel of perfectly wired outlets.
Right. It shows a level of dedication and pride in their work that I find really impressive.
Agreed. So we've talked about the meticulous inspections, the tools, the career path, even the portfolio. But why does any of this really matter? Like, what's the big picture impact of an electrical equipment inspector?
That's the question, isn't it? And honestly, RoleCatcher, despite all the marketing fluff, actually nails the answer.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell us why these electrical guardians matter.
Because they're the ones who make sure that the electrical products we use every day, our phones, computers, the lights in this very room, are safe.
It's easy to forget about all that when you're just flipping a switch.
Exactly. Every time you plug something in without a second thought, you've got an electrical equipment inspector to thank for that.
Wow, when you put it that way. They're like the unsung heroes of the electrical world.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technical stuff either. RoleCatcher talks about the importance of communication.
Oh, so you need to be fluent in both circuit diagrams, AD plain English.
Precisely.
So you need to be fluent in both circuit diagrams, AD plain English.
You got it. Imagine spending an hour inspecting circuit boards and you find a flaw in the soldering.
A tiny gap that could cause a major short circuit later.
Exactly. And now you need to explain that to the production manager who probably doesn't know a soldering iron from a soldering gun.
Oh boy. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
That's why being able to communicate clearly is so important. You have to translate those technical details into something everyone understands.
What, the why, the potential consequences. It's a lot.
It really is.
Yeah.
And RoleCatcher makes a big deal about continuous learning in this field.
Which makes sense. The world of electricity isn't exactly standing still.
Not at all. New technologies, new codes, new safety practices. A good inspector needs to be a lifelong learner.
Complacency can be a real shock to the system.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So where do you even start with all this learning?
Well, RoleCatcher has some ideas. They're big on formal education, associate degrees, certifications, that sort of thing.
The foundation is definitely important, but then there's the hands-on experience.
Right. Because reading about a circuit breaker is one thing, but actually inspecting one in the field is a whole other story.
Exactly. RoleCatcher really pushes apprenticeships. Learning from the pros, getting real-world experience.
Finding your own electrical mentor to guide you through the world of circuits.
I like that analogy. But, okay, let's say you've got the education, the experience, the mentor. How do you actually land a job?
Yeah, because at some point you got to turn all that knowledge into a paycheck.
True enough. And RoleCatcher, being RoleCatcher, they've got some tips for that, too. First up, the resume.
Time to dust off those old job descriptions and swap out proficient in Microsoft Word for can spot a faulty wire from a mile away.
Something like that. Highlight those technical skills certifications, any relevant experience.
Make it clear you're the electrical whisperer.
Then there's networking conferences, professional organizations like the IAEI.
Building those connections, making those sparks fly.
Exactly. Networking can open doors to job opportunities and give you a leg up in interviews.
Speaking of interviews, RoleCatcher has a whole section on that. They even have a list of common interview questions.
Oh, yeah, they love their lists. Want to hear a few.
Absolutely. Give me your best electrical interview, Zinger.
All right, how about this one? Describe a time you had to deal with a complex electrical problem. How did you approach it, and what was the outcome?
Classic. They want to hear about your thought process, your problem-solving skills, not just textbook answers.
Right. They want to see that you can handle the heat when things get tricky.
Speaking of heat, what about staying up to date on codes and standards? That's got to be a big one.
Absolutely. They'll definitely ask about that. They want to know you're committed to continuous learning, that you're not going to fall behind.
So subscribing to Electrical Engineering Weekly is a good move.
Can't hurt. But it's more about showing that you're actively engaged with the industry conferences, journals, online forums.
Basically living and breathing electricity.
Pretty much. Okay, give me one more interview curveball.
Hit me with it.
How about this? How do you handle a situation where you discover a safety violation that could delay production?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's about balancing safety with practicality.
Exactly. They're looking for someone who can think critically, communicate effectively, and advocate for safety without being a hardliner.
A delicate balance indeed. So it's not just about knowing your stuff, it's about how you handle those tricky situations.
Absolutely. And you know what else RoleCatcher keeps coming back to?
What's that?
Ethics integrity. They really emphasize the importance of those qualities in this field.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
These inspectors are the ones making sure our electrical world is safe and reliable.
Exactly. They have a lot of responsibility riding on their shoulders. And RoleCatcher gives examples of ethical dilemmas they might face.
Like pressure to overlook a violation to meet a deadline.
Or dealing with suppliers cutting corners on safety.
Tough calls.
Yeah.
But in those moments, it comes down to personal integrity.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
They need to be able to stand by their principles even when it's difficult.
So it's not just about circuits and wires. It's about having a strong moral compass.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So we've got the technical skills, the communication, the ethics. Is there anything else these electrical guardians need?
Well, RoleCatcher does touch on emerging trends in the field.
Oh yeah, like what?
One big one is automation. More and more inspections are being done by robots and AI.
So instead of an inspector with the screwdriver, it's a robot arm with sensors and cameras.
Exactly. And this is only going to increase in the future, making inspections faster, more efficient.
But that doesn't mean human inspectors are obsolete, right?
Not at all. RoleCatcher's very clear about that. It's about augmenting human capabilities, not replacing them.
So it's humans and robots working together.
The ultimate electrical dream team.
I like it. But even with all this talk about robots and AI, I have a feeling good old-fashioned soft skills are still crucial.
You're talking communication, teamwork, problem solving, all that good stuff.
Exactly. Because even the most advanced robot can't replace human judgment and intuition.
Exactly. You need to be able to read a situation, effectively adapt to unexpected challenges.
So it's about being a well-rounded professional, not just a technical expert.
Exactly. And that's a great message for anyone considering this career path. It's not just about what you know. It's about how you apply it, how you interact with others, and how you approach challenges.
It's about being a master of the electrical domain.
And a master of your own professional development.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. The meticulous inspections, the career paths, the ethics. even the rise of the robots.
It's a fascinating field full of challenges and rewards.
But before we wrap up this electrifying deep dive, I want to get your final thoughts.
After really diving into this world, I'm struck by the impact these professionals have on our daily lives.
They're the unsung heroes of the electrical world.
Exactly. Every time we flip a switch or charge our phone, we're relying on their expertise and dedication.
And in a world that's only becoming more reliant on electricity, their role is more important than ever.
Absolutely. So, to all the electrical equipment inspectors out there, thank you for your hard work and for keeping our world running smoothly.
Hear, hear. And to our listeners, I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about this vital but often overlooked profession.
It's a career path worth considering, especially if you've got a head for technology, a passion for safety, and a desire to make a real difference in the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Ooh.
And on that note, it's time to unplug for today. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay plugged into the world around you.
It's funny how you don't really think about electricity until it's gone.
Totally. It's like we just expect our lights to turn on, our phones to charge,
All those things we take for granted until suddenly the power's out.
and then we're scrambling for flashlights, realizing just how much we rely on those wires. Absolutely. And that's when those electrical equipment inspectors really come to mind,
They're the ones making sure those wires are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
keeping our electrical world humming along. Which reminds me, we haven't really touched on the environmental side of things.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a green aspect to electrical inspection.
Really? Tell me more about that.
Well, for one thing, inspectors play a big role in making sure equipment meets energy efficiency standards.
So it's not just about safety, it's about sustainability too.
Exactly. They're looking for ways to reduce energy consumption, make things more efficient.
So they're like energy detectives, hunting down those power-hungry appliances.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just checking boxes on a form. They can recommend upgrades, modifications, things that can really make a difference.
So they're not just inspecting, they're actively promoting sustainability.
Precisely. It's a big part of the job, and it's only going to become more important.
Absolutely.
Right.
Especially with climate change and all that. So it's not just about energy efficiency either, right?
Right. They're also involved in making sure equipment is manufactured responsibly.
Using recycled materials, minimizing waste, that kind of thing.
Exactly. They're part of that whole movement toward sustainable manufacturing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much impact these inspectors have, and we don't even realize it.
They're the silent guardians of our electrical world, making sure everything runs smoothly and safely.
And sustainably, which I think is a perfect note to end on.
It really is electrical equipment inspectors. They're more important than most people realize.
Absolutely. So to all those inspectors out there, thank you for your hard work. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for this electrifying deep dive.
Until next time, stay curious.